Hello and welcome to the show. This week's FailRace versus the community was A-Class Rotary engined vehicles. Our first race was at the Twin Ring Montegi West Circuit. I think that's the name of this lap. I can never remember this one. First corner here can often be a little bit hectic, and sure enough there was a little bit of bumping going on. No major incidents particularly. I had started right down the back and it was about survival this time round. I'd hoped to make up a few places, but it really just became a matter of don't run into anything. Certainly the best approach, I would say, with these kind of races. You know, there's no point trying to make up 3 or 4 places if your car just gets broken in the process. If you have a damaged car, it's no good. It's much better to be patient and try and work your way through and keep your car in one piece. You really don't want any damage. And that was my ethos at the start of this race. I was trying to avoid breaking my RX-7, and things were going pretty well as I found myself battling with a couple of RX-8s. Coming up towards the next corner, I had plenty of grip in my Mazda. I go the long way around to get to the inside of the next corner, and we're 3 wide through there. Everybody gets through safely though, which is always good. I did not have the straight line speed though. While I did have a fairly decent amount of grip, I was being mugged in the straights, and then the RX-8s came back at me on the next corner. Again, we proceeded to go 3 wide. A little bit of bumping, a little bit of paint swapping, but we got out the other side okay. I ended up on the outside as we came into the final corner, and while I had the grip to go all the way around the outside, I did not have the acceleration on the vehicles around me that would all promptly out-drag me in a straight line. Quite frustrating, that one. I have to say, watching everything be faster than you. At the front, things have been much calmer. It was much quieter at the front, much more spread out as an MX-5 goes exploring, and this particular MX-5 gets, well, destroyed by an incredibly fast RX-7. That's pulled that RX-7 has pulled a ridiculous gap in a very short space of time. That thing was pretty damn quick in a straight line. I was still working on surviving at the back. It was probably one of the busiest first laps I've ever done in racing, this one. It was just, I was constantly side by side with something for the first 2 laps. Again, it was 3 wide through the same corner, and I managed to overtake sort of a couple of cars and fend off one, all in the space of 1 corner. And still my little RX-7 had received pretty much no damage. It might have had a little bit of aero. It survived remarkably well through the opening laps as I was fending off and fighting with everything. It was certainly an experience, I will say that. For a lot of this race, it was pretty quiet on the most part, fairly spread out. Certainly spread out sort of through the order. This is 2nd, 3rd and 4th. About halfway through the race, a couple of MX-5s and the incredibly fast RX-7 in the middle of them. The MX-5 Superlight, with the most ridiculous wing in the world, was struggling on the straight line speed. The Mark II MX-5 doing a little bit better job. Of course, no match for the RX-7, but he could fend him off into turn 1. These next corners are a bit of a nasty one through here. Fairly fast corners that you really want quite a bit of grip to get through here quickly. The MX-5 was a little bit out of shape as they exit onto this back straight, and doesn't really take much for the RX-7 to breeze up alongside, and then there's very little the MX-5 can do. He tries to be brave, tries to go around the outside. MX-5 probably the better handling of the 2 cars, but just doesn't have the acceleration and nowhere near the straight line speed. Ignore the smoke, by the way, that's just a laggy replay. The cars weren't damaged, certainly not to that extent. They might have had a bit of aero, but yeah, it's the replays being funny. And again, replays being funny, yes, you will see some ghost taillights going on. The ghosts of Forza 4 do like to join in with versus the community from time to time, and they were circulating in around 13th place at this particular moment in time. In front of them was an MX-5 versus an RX-8 as they run in towards the final corner. MX-5 goes for a dive up the inside. Well done to the RX-8 for going all the way, keeping it around the outside there. It's pretty tough to do. So he fends off the position for now. However, the MX-5 has got to the inside, and it's a drag race towards turn 1. The livery of the evening goes to the Lightning McQueen MX-5. I do like that design. That's a cool design. As you come into turn 1, again, the RX-8's trying to be brave. There goes the ghost car. He's made up a position. RX-8 tries to hold it the outside. Pretty tough holding it around the outside, though, at turn 1. The story of my race was trying to find a way past this this RX-8. I just could not overtake it. I had a quicker car around the course of the lap. Problem was the RX-8 was so much faster than me in a straight line, so I spent a good 3 laps just staring at the back of this car, and there was nothing I could do about it. I threw everything at him. He defended very well as I tried to go around the outside of pretty much every corner. I had the grip, I had the traction, I could get the cutback if I wanted to, or I could hold it around the outside. And then the problem is with this track, every time we exit a corner, there is a fairly long straight to the next one, and then the RX-8 is gone, and then there's nothing I can do about it. Again, final corner, right on his bumper, get a really good drive out the final corner, and then the RX-8 buggers off. At the front, it had been a fairly lonely race for the leader, who had vanished from the first lap near enough. It was another RX-7 Spirit type, I can never remember. Yeah, whatever. The Unicorn RX-7 that would take the victory. It was a much more eventful race further back, this one. Normally it's towards the front, we have a lot of the action. This one on the Twin Ring, it was kind of further back, that was fairly busy. We move on to our second race at the Tsukuba circuit. Turn 1 can often end up with cars sort of 2 or 3 wide. Not very often they go 5 wide. That is certainly a new record for versus the community. Admittedly, one of the RX-7s was slightly on the grass, but they were 5 wide. There was some strange lag going on further back, which we'll come back to in a minute. That everybody did well to not have a big crash from that one. I don't know how nobody was affected, apart from the car that lagged. Nobody else got killed in that, which is a combination of luck and people doing well to avoid it. I fortunately can't do very much about the lag as we come up towards the second hairpin on the opening lap. There was plenty of cars being too wide. As I said, we're going to come back to have a look at the lag now. Our previous record for the highest speed crash ever is also at Tsukuba. It was around 1,500, 1,700 miles an hour. So the first little bit of lag, while very quick, 391 miles an hour, certainly isn't going to be a record. It's later on, though, things get interesting. The game basically just can't quite decide what it wants to do with this car. So it sort of holds it backwards, and then it's going to catapult it forwards at 440, and then even faster backwards. That's 5,500 miles an hour. That is a very big speed crash. Yeah, that's an awful lot of speed. But by far the fastest crash we have ever seen in versus the community. And then, amazingly, doesn't actually really affect anyone. I think it affects a green RX-8, and everybody else is fine with a car doing 5,000 miles an hour backwards. And then the RX-7 just carries on as if nothing had happened. I don't know if he had any damage from that. No idea what damage-wise every car in this replay near enough was smoking. Yeah, lag messed up this race massively. I'll be on, probably the worst race we've ever had for lagging. I mean, we did get a lot of speed from it, but yeah, lag was not good. Trying to fit 3 cars wide ended up with everybody in the dirt. And then an MX-5 gets fired off, I think. Again, I think that's lag rather than the controller turning off in the way that the car suddenly picks up speed. Like, it shouldn't suddenly pick up speed like that. If the controller turns off, sure, you'll go straight, but you won't suddenly start accelerating. So, again, weirdness, all manner of weirdness is happening at Tsukuba today. No ghost cars, though. The ghost didn't want to play in this, or maybe it was the ghost controlling the cars. Perhaps that's why things were going bizarre. We should give the ghosts their own cars and let them have their own race, and don't affect our vehicles. Anyway, up towards the final corner is an RX-7 against an RX-8. The RX-7 not quite having the straight line speed, but did have a little bit better grip through the corners. Gets to the inside as they run around the long final corner, and he's perfectly positioned into turn 1 to get the place off the RX-8. And then the car does a little bit of a fly, tries to hold it around the outside, can't quite make it stick though. If you can keep your car around the outside, you'll be on the inside for the hairpin, so it's definitely worth an effort, but the RX-8 can't quite do it. He's still trying to find a way past the RX-7. The 2 RX-7s end up out a little bit wide, and suddenly the Silver Mazda has found himself overtaking and made up a couple of positions. After a laggy bump had dropped me down to 3rd, I found myself fending off from a rather purple MX-5. Still struggling for straight line speed in my Spirit R. I proceed to go around the outside of an MX-5. The MX-5 gets a big slide after eating a little bit too much of the curb. That's much scarier watching that on the replay than it was driving. I raced on bonnet view and I couldn't see a thing of that. I had no idea how close I came to having a crash there. Well saved from the MX-5. It would have been very easy for that to have ended up in the back of my car and put both of us out. So a lot of this replay footage is kind of fairly unusable with the amount of lag that was going on. But there was another very near miss, well avoided from this MX-5, as I think as an RX-7 has a spin in front of 3 cars. This MX-5 is quick thinking enough to throw his car off the road and avoid the crash. So yeah, well done on getting out of the way of that one. There was much mess up lag on this one. It was a real pain. I apologise if there was good racing going on that I couldn't show because cars were flying everywhere. This was the best group of vehicles that I could find. That purple MX-5 should be in the pits. It shouldn't be out on track. It should be in the pit lane. It wasn't. Don't ask. I've never seen that before either. Again, all manner of weirdness in this particular versus the community. At this stage it was a couple of RX-7s fighting each other over what was, I believe, 4th place. The RX-8's trying to get involved, and then there is some lag going on, and then there's an RX-7 out wide. Now I just don't know what... this is what most of the replay is like. There, I don't know what's going on. I think the RX-8's trying to go around the outside, or perhaps the RX-7's trying to go to orbit, or to the wall, or who knows? It's all sorts of weirdness. Yeah, I'm sad to say this has definitely been the worst race for lag, which is a shame because Tsukuba normally throws up some pretty good racing. Anyway, it was to be a Buzzbox RX-7 that was to take the victory. I think it was a Buzzbox that was in 2nd as well. I think I ended up in 3rd. Yeah, it was a shame because Tsukuba can throw up some interesting racing. This one was slightly ruined by lag. Our 3rd and final race went to the Alps Club circuit, a track that I quite like. This is a great track, I think. Tend not to use it too often for versus the community because it's a little bit of a weird one, this one. There is about 1 corner that requires any serious braking. The rest of them are either flat out or small brake, perhaps a downshift in some places. It's a very fast track, this one. But straight line speed is not the most important characteristic of your car here. You need a lot of grip. My RX-7 is one of the slower cars here in a straight line. However, it fared really well. It went really well at this circuit because it has a lot of grip. It is very good handling. And with all of the high-speed corners, that corner that we just went around there as a Buzzbox gets a bit lost, that is the tightest corner that we go to on this track. Yeah, it's a bit of an odd one. Building a car for this particular track is a bit strange. But yeah, I had found myself rather busy on this opening lap, making up, I think, 5 or 6 places, fighting my way through the order in my RX-7 as we come through this, probably the narrowest part of the track. A bit scary going too wide through there. It can be a little bit tough as we come up around the fast final corner. There was plenty of overtaking going on this opening lap. For the first sort of couple of laps, it became sort of this long train of vehicles. I've never quite seen it before, where there's such a train of cars going on. The RX-7 here is having a look at the inside through these very fast corners. These are scarily fast. The RX-8 does very well to keep his car around the outside. He's doing his best here. Just runs a bit wide, brushes the wall. And then there's a little bit of a coming together. Well done for saving that on the RX-7 front. It would have been easy for that to have been a big crash. And still they're side by side through the next corner. An MX-5 appeared from absolutely nowhere. Very easy to run wide on that particular corner. The RX-8's cutting back to the inside as the RX-7's exploring the limits of the track. And then the lag goes all funny. The RX-8 eats the camera and a couple of RX-7s get lagged into each other. Yeah, the lag was back for this one, which is always not fun as some cones get thrown around and cars zigzag down the road. Yeah, it's a bit of a shame, to be honest. There was still some good racing. Alps, as I said, Alps is a bit of a funny track. While it doesn't really have a huge amount of what I would call conventional overtaking places because there is just no braking zones for most of the corners. Overtaking isn't as hard as you might think. I think that is largely down to the fact that this track is pretty wide. Apart from this section here, most of the corners are very easy to have cars sort of too wide through, and if you've got enough grip, it's not that hard to stay side by side with somebody through the corners. So overtaking certainly was possible on here. This MX-5 Superlight that we're currently following was struggling a little bit in straight line speed compared to the RX-8s. RX-8s certainly seem to be one of the faster cars in a straight line, sort of in general. As we come into the first corner, the RX-8's trying to get up the inside, can't quite do it. The RX-7, in the sort of the modern RX-7s, did seem to struggle a little bit for pace, or some of them seem to. Yeah, I think there's lots of different routes taken with the modifying of the cars. The RX-8's trying to go around the outside of the Mazda and manages to do it. I can't decide if that is just the MX-5 was slow through there, or if there was a lag that jumped the RX-8 forward, because that made up a huge amount of time through that corner, and I'm not quite sure how he did it. Again, it was the midfield on this one that was by far the most interesting of the group. At the front, things were pretty spaced out, and it was this little group of cars around, I think it was around sort of 6th place and back, that were the closest on track. The RX-7 here just brushes the guard railing. Well done to the MX-5 for seeing that and stopping in time. It would have been very easy to be in the back of the RX-7 there. Yeah, that wall is the wall of champions for Forza 4. I'm pretty sure every car ended up in that wall or brushed that wall at some point during this race. It is so easily done when you're pushing your car through there. I had an eventful race, having been spun out at one point, and was on a mission to take 3rd place. Had absolutely been flying on the final couple of laps. My RX-7 was really nice at this particular track, and I closed up on the back of an RX-8 that was really struggling for grip. I did a cutback through this corner, get myself to the inside. The RX-8 has no real reply as we run around the next corner. I keep my car on the inside. The RX-8 is the faster car in a straight line. It will outdrag me through the straight bits, but I have just enough of a lead to stay in front through the fast chicane. At the front, it was a modern RX-7 that would take the victory. In fact, it was to be a modern RX-7 1-2-3. Having said that they struggled, they did on the most part struggle in these races. They did suit the Alps though. These cars, the RX-7s, definitely seem to be pretty good handling. So yeah, the RX-7s would certainly be the most successful. The Spirit I don't think was the best of cars. I know one won the opening race. Mine really struggled with pace through most of the evening. So yes, there we go. That is it for this versus the community. Certainly the noisiest versus the community that that we have ever done. Is a shame about the lag. Yeah, it ruined Tsukuba for sure. The Alps was not quite as bad, but still pretty damn bad. Yeah, it is a bit of a shame. However, it can't really do much about that. Hopefully, next week will be better. The next FailRace vs the community shall be on Thursday, the 19th of June. It shall be starting at 7 PM British summertime, and we shall be running B-class European cars. Plenty of choice this time to choose from. I'm going to say, you know, no leaderboard cars. Don't turn up in Elises, not Exiges, sorry. Elises and whatever else goes on the leaderboards, as that's just boring. Be creative, bring interesting cars, and yeah, let's hope we have some less lag. That's not very good English, but you know what I mean. Hopefully it'll work better next time. If you want to sign up to take part in that event, then you can go to our forums. There will be a link in the description, and you find the versus the community section there, and that is where you sign up. However, that is it for today, so thank you very much for watching, and until next time, goodbye.